Hey everybody. I'm excited to try out some videos to go along with some of my blogs. So I put this together. Um, I recently co-presented a with a group of school staff and parents, community members, and it was an awesome opportunity. Um, and we didn't necessarily hit everything that we were hoping to hit. So I was thinking, how can I try to make up for that, and get the information out that I really wanted people to benefit from. And then I thought, well, maybe this could be something that more than just those folks can benefit from. Um, so here's here's kind of these ingredients, as we called it, for effective communication and collaboration across home and school systems of support. Um, and during our conversation, we talked about what are these essential ingredients, what are the pests that are eating the ingredients recently, and what can you do, whether you're a parent, school staff, school personnel, administrator, anybody that works in schools, or anybody outside of school that supports members of the community, to provide those wraparound services. So um, really, one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I got across was that the pests are eating the ingredients everywhere, um, and I don't share that to kind of get fear mongering going or finger pointing, but really to help people to see behind the curtain a little bit, um, and to get involved with offering solutions whenever possible. Um, and a big part of knowing, the details of how school staffing shortages are impacting um, kids and leading to burnout, and burnout is leading to um, is contributing right back to school staff shortages, which then pulls people from being able to do the many different roles and responsibilities that are all deemed super critical. Um, and in that, it's easy for it can be easy for things to fall through the cracks and for problems to appear. And for parents, that's super frustrating when it's impacting your child. um, and I just published a blog. Actually, I published the start to it, and then there's another one, an outro. So I'll put that link in this video. I'll make sure that you get that. But really, where I was going with that is that, like, now more than ever, it is so challenging to be a parent of a student, where they aren't necessarily making their growth and potential, um, and being able to have those problem solving conversations with the school is really challenging for many of these issues, where these ingredients, things like trying to understand like unique circumstances, time management and boundaries, empathy, um, self-awareness, rapport, compassion, creating a welcoming environment, trust, all of those things are really impacted in this situation. And so what I'm doing with these blogs, and I'll probably do some more videos, but talking about one ingredient at a time, and talking about what kind of pests are out there that eat the ingredients sometimes, as well as what can you do to help cultivate it when it's not there, whether it's not there with the parents, whether it's not there with the school, whether it's not there with either, right? What can you do? So one of the my blog talks about many different things that you can try. Really, the biggest thing is being able to have trust, time, curiosity to learn more about people, um, empathy, self awareness, right? All of these things go into that. Um, And so here are some ways that if there's no time, if some of those ingredients are missing and you can't have these difficult conversations at times, where people are actively listening, um, there's definitely some ways in the blog of what you can do to supplement while you continue to work on building these things in your team across home, school, community. Um, but here's kind of a thought exercise that you can do, no matter whether you're school staff, whether you're a parent, grandparent, caregiver, guardian, foster parent, community member, volunteer, service provider, all those things, right? It's really about how are we showing up when it's time to collaborate. So asking yourself, um, looking at some of these variables of my experiences just before I walk in to collaborate and interact as a team. So, did I have a good day? Did somebody say something to me? Did I get cut off on the drive over? Um, was I in traffic? All of those things. Um, for school staff, it's like, is this like my sixth meeting of the day? Barely had a time to get a bathroom break. Haven't eaten. Um, just got yelled at in the last meeting, or was it a really good meeting right before, or have I been having a great day, right? All of these things certainly impacted the way that I showed up in meetings, despite trying to keep it level. Responsibilities, seen and unseen, right? As parents, staff, community providers, we all have responsibilities. There's some that it's easy to see what they are, but there's a lot that people don't have a glimpse into, right? So being able to talk about, or share about, or find out information about, like, what are all those responsibilities that are on people's plates. Um, I think this often would show up as a dynamic in meetings of the different people at the table. What are their passions? What are they experts in? What is their kind of personal philosophy? What's their priority? For me, I think safety was always the first and foremost priority in my mind. Um, and then it's, extending beyond just physical safety. It's extending to like psychological safety. Do we have friends? Is this a place where you can feel comfortable walking in, where you can grow and have fun, right? And then kind of expanding out from that, similar to like basic needs met, that kind of goes hand in hand with that. Kind of working our way up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then other things, like I mentioned before, is like, did people have time for lunch? Sometimes people come into a meeting and they're hangry. I know that was me a lot. I got hangry. So I think that's something for me to reflect on. When do I need to find time for lunch? Is it possible to find time for lunch? Do I need to ask if I can eat during the meeting? Learning environments, right? So school's such a different learning environment. And that often can be so frustrating and confusing when we're working together and we're, parents see their child interacting in a certain environment, right? That's not always the same as school, and vice versa. And so to be able to think and reflect on like what's unique about these environments, especially in those situations where the way that the learner is showing up in those environments doesn't seem to match up, and having conversations around that. What's the learner's profile? What's the helper's profile? So I think of this as like like kind of those dynamics, those relationship dynamics. Um, think about it when you're thinking about like the teachers that have worked really well for your kid in the past. Like, what is it about them? Are they the warm and fuzzy type? Are they very flexible, or are they super structured, or somewhere in between? Right, like that is a huge dynamic of how of what we bring into those meetings, and the way that we view um, supporting the learners, the age. People view individuals of different ages through different lenses. And I think also, like, as a school staff member, like, if they're used to working with a certain population and then all of a sudden they pivot to this other age group, that can be a learning curve. It can be awesome. It brings in new ideas, resources, um, like systems and techniques that are commonplace with an older or younger group. You can use it to see how it would apply to the child in this setting. Um, so I think that's a can be a huge gift, and it can also be as somebody who moved around between age groups. It definitely is a learning curve. Subject area, skill focus, like what is somebody's background, where are they, gets into that learning environment, and also like passions, philosophies, priorities. That can be a huge dynamic in these meetings. Past experiences, that's a huge one. Whether it's a parent that I worked with in the schools, or that I work with in my role as a educational consultant or advocate. You know, many people have had experiences for themselves that were either positive or usually pretty negative related to special education. My hope is that as we get further and further from the days of old where people were put in the basement or some back closet somewhere, when I'm working with families, their own experiences with special education will start to have more of a positive experience. Um, but that can be a big component of somebody's perspective. Um, whether your family had experiences working with special education, or navigating resources and supports in schools, and remembering that each team and the members of each team, I think, can really change um, the effectiveness and the culture and environment of student supports in that building, right? And so, um, just because they're in the same district and they had one experience doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be destined to have that experience too, which can be on the good side or the bad side, right? Whether you've had other children go through the system, um, or you've worked with that student's siblings, you know, each kid's different, right? And so it's it's natural to kind of go to that lens of like, this is my comparison group. But remembering that, like, yeah, they're going to have some things in common, but there's also going to be some things that are different. And those conversations come up a lot, especially when one child, the older child, is doing well, and that's kind of like the baseline. And then there's a younger child who learns how to read much faster, or put in some different academic skill. That can be really jarring, I think, for parents, um, to then think like, oh shoot, like, did I miss something with the older child? And that's where that teamwork is so useful, and getting different people's perspectives is so useful. um, Thinking about the individual's learning style and demonstration of understanding styles. um, so I think of this as like input, how do I learn things? Output, what's the best way for me to be able to show people what I learned? And everybody's style is different. And what we know is that there are some educational challenges, or educational disabilities or clinical disabilities that have some genetic component, right? And so, um, we know that there will be times where parents show up in a certain way, where if we're just doing a lot of this talking out loud, that's not going to work well for them. And so it's really reflecting on, like, what can I do differently? Again, grade level, I think, goes back to that age of learners, that kind of comment. Personality, that's huge. Am I a warm and fuzzy person? Am I a down to get down to business person? I usually kind of straddle both lines. But what I found is in the school system, when the needs are coming at you from everywhere and there are so many meetings that need to happen, I feel like I had to lose some of the warm and fuzzy stuff to be able to get us, you know, get us through and be able to meet the needs of as many people as possible. But I also know that doesn't come off really well sometimes. Um, so thinking about that and vice versa for parents, like um, thinking about how your personality might contribute to the team where it is a strength, and where those intersections of personalities can be challenges. And then access to resources is a huge component. And as a school staff member, like we don't always know what resources the parents, families are willing to access, have tried to access, need to get access to. And that can be a really challenging conversation to have because of some of those professional boundaries. In the schools, one of the things that's drilled into us as a school psychologist is like, if you recommend something, then the school district might need to be able to implement that, right? So it makes those conversations of like, hey, have you thought about seeing somebody with expertise in this or that? It makes it really challenging to have those open conversations. And again, it gets back to that trust factor. Training and knowledge. Is somebody brand new? Is this your first IEP meeting that you've ever been to? Or have you been through this, years and years and years? Some of the times that I would see that coming up would be like if a parent's child has been on an IEP for like 3 or 4 years, people start to at times cut corners, assuming that in order to try to get more time, usually, and be more efficient, sometimes people gloss over conversations, thinking, okay, this parent has been through X number of annual review meetings at this point. Like it's been discussed. They're aware. For me, like that is one of my biggest passions when I'm working with parents, whether it was when I'm in the schools or working privately as an ed consultant and advocate. I want parents to know, like, I want to make sure that they're a part of the decision and that there's not like these surprises that come up. Um, and so, at times that can come across as me um, just droning on and on about stuff like I'm doing right now. Um, but it's not to hear my own voice. It's because I want parents to feel like they understood what their options were and to feel like they were a part of the team and stand by their decision, and fully understand what their decision, the implications of it are. Um, and yeah, emotional state, right? That kind of gets into things we've already talked about. Um, so if I come in super stressed at like a 9 on my 10-point scale, where 10 is like I'm falling apart, I'm not going to, I know for me, as somebody who has anxiety and some executive functioning difficulties, like it's going to be really hard for me to focus and take everything um, in a meaningful way. And I can fall into becoming more defensive um, when I am out of sorts emotionally. Right. So those are some of the, like, my reflections on that. And then here's some questions that I would pose to you, like thinking about those factors, like knowing yourself. How are these variables influencing the way that you show up to collaborate? How do these things tint the lens that I'm viewing the situation through? Where are my gaps and areas of need? Where are my strengths? And are there blind spots in the lens that I'm viewing the situation through? And so that's something too that, like, if you feel comfortable having your team kind of think through with that too, whether your team is, whether you're a school staff member watching this or whether you're a parent watching this, like sharing it with the rest of the team and having a conversation around that. Like, where do we, as a team, where are our strengths? Where are our gaps? Are there blind spots? And what are we doing well when we collaborate? What can we improve on? So those are some reflections that I have on this topic, and my true hope is that it resonates for a few people, hopefully more than a few. Um, but it also isn't just something you listen to and don't try, but you actually take a swing at it, regardless of whether you're parent, school, community provider, whatever. And know that, like, collaboration, just like cooking, it's an art. And there'll be times where you have all the ingredients you need, you think you're following the recipe, and what comes out is not at all what you expected. That's collaboration. And so I think the important part is don't give up, try again, um, try to get the message out that you want to get out. Um, and if there's ever a time where you feel like some of your gaps as a team or yourself, where somebody like myself could be useful, to come in and try to work together with the team in a respectful way, to get through some gridlock, please always, just reach out. So have a great day, and I hope the week's been treating you well. Take care.